Hi, you guys. This is Rebecca from With Bounty and Soul. I'm coming to you from at least 6 feet away in my kitchen. And I mentioned to Abby that I was going to make a kitchen sink soup today for my own family. And she suggested that I do a little live video for you guys about maybe what you can make in your kitchen from what you already have. We've been self-isolating here for 7 days. It's been a while since we've been to the grocery store, and I just have some stuff in my kitchen that's kind of hanging out. And for me, a soup is like the best way to get rid of all that stuff and use it's a great way to use what's in your box that you got this week. So I usually work in the background, so I'm a little nervous today about this, but I have been a chef for a number of years, and but before that I was a home cook for 20 years. And the main thing that I learned when I was a chef was that to let go of recipes. It just gave me the confidence to kind of stop using recipes and rely more on my just basic knowledge. And so this is like a perfect time to play, just kind of using your own freedom with like what you have instead of, relying on what somebody else has done in the past. So what I've got here, what I like to do first is I usually go into my refrigerator and my pantry and my freezer, and I gather kind of everything I think I might use for the soup I'm going to make today. So depending on what's in your, what you've got, kind of depends on what kind of soup you might make. So today I'm making kind of a Mexican themed soup. I've got, because I've got some chipotle peppers, and I've got some corn, and I've got some beans, but maybe you have some ginger and some garlic and you want to make sort of an Asian-y style. Maybe you've got some rosemary coming up in your garden and you want to do like a white bean soup, an Italian style soup. Maybe you just have a ton of vegetables and you just want to make a veggie soup. You kind of work with what you've got. So today I've got onion, and I've got carrot, and I've got celery. So this is the mirepoix. Generally, this is what you would start with. You would saute this. I'm going to saute this until it's nice and soft. This would be the time I would add anything else that's in my refrigerator that's like a hard vegetable, like butternut squash. You could add here. I love fennel if you happen to have that. Even potato, like sweet potato, you could add during this time. Veggies is what I would add here. And I would saute that until it's nice and soft. And then as it's sauteing, I would add my first round of spices. So when you add spices to oil and vegetables that are hot, they kind of bloom. They're, these dried spices, they're dried. So they kind of lose a little bit of their, if you saute them with your onions and your celery and your fennel or whatever you happen to have, it just gives them a little boost. Now later, once the soup is almost done and I do my tasting, I'm gonna recheck those spices and I might add more. I like to add the spices kind of twice to the soup, because you get kind of the freshness when it is at the end. Okay, so to Mexican style soup, I'm going to use probably cumin and oregano. If you are doing like an Italian style, I love to use smoked paprika. You can use dried Italian herbs. With like an Asian soup, you can do, like I said, fresh ginger and garlic, but if you don't have fresh, you can use dried ginger will work too. This is the time to add that at the kind of the beginning. Once I have my spices in there and they're kind of like everything smells really good and I've added a decent amount of salt, happen to have stock. You might not. That was one of the first things I grabbed when everything started happening. You might have chicken bouillon. Water and chicken bouillon will do just fine. You might have like the packaged ramen noodles in your, just the instant ramen noodles. You can take the packaging out of that and add it to water. You can use water, but you're going to have to really pump up the flavor in different ways. Because unless you're going to make a veggie stock ahead of time, it's going to be a little thin. Another thing that you might have is some miso paste. Generally, like the Japanese add their miso at the very end to make the soup, but sometimes they'll add some at the beginning, umami flavor. That's another thing that you can use. So there are ways that you can get around not having stock. Of course, if you're lucky enough to have a whole chicken, the best chicken broth you can make, literally, is just taking a whole chicken, putting it in a pot of water, and cooking that baby down for a couple hours. You'll just get the most delicious smelling stock you can imagine. Sometimes I'll throw a bay leaf in there, but honestly, you don't need it. And you can use the chicken afterwards in like a chicken soup. My thing is buffering, so hopefully it's still okay. Once I add the liquid, then I would add some sort of probably bean to it. Today I have kidney beans. If you're not going to add beans, that's fine. But I would definitely try to put some sort of protein in your soup, especially these days. We're trying to kind of get whole meals from small things. So I also have dried lentils. I have, what else do I have here? That's it. I have dried lentils. Other ways you can get protein into your soup if you're not a meat eater. You can add an egg on top later. You can do quinoa, which is one of the big sources for vegetarians. I suspect that a lot of people are vegetarians or vegans. Tofu is like a kind of a specialty item, so you might not just have it. You can also, I like lentils, especially in soup because they have their own kind of, like thickener, and they just have a really, really good flavor in soup. So I would add lentils. If you have other kinds of dried beans, you have to soak those first and cook them ahead of time, but lentils you can add right to the stock. Simmer that for at least an hour. Don't go too long and don't boil it hard. Once that's done, and you're kind of toward the end, this is where like kind of the magic happens. Thickeners, it's great if you want just like a brothy soup, that's fine. But a lot of the times I like to add something to give it a little more oomph. And there's some kind of fun ways you can do that. If you're making a soup that has beans in it, especially, you can take out some of the liquid and some of the beans when you kind of have got the flavor that you want in there, and puree it, just like a cup of it, and add it back to the soup, and that will just give it an extra thickness. Another cool trick is mashed potatoes. You can either, if you have mashed potatoes, you can use those. I've seen people use instant mashed potatoes. You have to actually make the mashed potatoes and then add it to your soup. Just throw one potato in your soup while it's cooking, and then kind of scoop it out and make your own mashed potatoes, and then add it back in. That's a great gluten-free way of like thickening up your soup and giving it some oomph. Cream, of course, works. And then today, like what I'm gonna do is, because I'm doing kind of a Mexican style soup, I'm gonna use like crushed up tortilla chips. This is a great way to add like a corn flavor to your soup. If you've got that bag of tortilla chips your kids have been munching down, and like, now there's like crumbs at the bottom. If you crumble those up and put them in your soup, they will thicken up the soup and give it that kind of nice corn flavor. Toward the end is also where I would add any meat. You don't want it to get like soggy in there. It'll take on too much water if you do it earlier. At the end, I would also add, I'm going to do, I got this leftover coconut rice that I made the other day. I'm going to put that in there. This is also when you would add your soft veggies. Like I happen to have kale, but you can put soups. You can do bok choy in Asian soups. I mean, what's in your garden? If you're lucky enough to have something in your garden, or what do you have in the bottom of your refrigerator? I have this kind of like old, sad-looking stalk of celery. I mean, cilantro. You can use these soft stems even in there. I'll chop those up and put them in at the end. And then at the very end of wood, and this is the trick, is you got to check your flavors. So at the very end, you got everything in there, you know, give it a taste, add more cumin, add more salt, probably pepper, and you think you do, to make it taste delicious. And, you know, tinker with the flavor a little bit. This is where kind of like the magic happens. So hopefully that was helpful. I don't know. I mean, everybody has something different right now in the refrigerator. And we're all just kind of trying to like use up this can of green beans and this weird pepper paste that I bought like 3 years ago. So good luck out there. Have fun. The worst you can do is make bad soup, which is not really like a disaster. Bad soup is still good soup as far as I'm concerned. It's just a really good way to stretch ingredients. You can freeze it, soups really super easily, and it's a good way to stretch things like during a time where we might not be able to get out. So anyway, I hope everybody is well. Stay healthy, hug your family, and thanks.